Americans have read it. WTF is a meatloaf. Someone was going to make meatballs, looked at all the work to make it into balls, and said fuck it and baked the whole thing in the shape of a bread loaf. He's a singer and he'll do a lot for love, but he won't do that, whatever that is. Pretty much. It's amazing when it's made right. My parents make it with deer meat and I'm completely spoiled on it. It's a dish made from minced meat with spices and stuff, yeah. Babodi without nuts and raisins and American spices. Then it's usually topped with ketchup or BBQ sauce before it's baked. Imagine a loaf of bread made out of meat. Besides being an amazing musician in the 70s 80s and an incredible safe word in the BDSM world, it is a dish. Ground beef outside the US, it's often called minced breadcrumbs, eggs, seasoning, whatever floats your boat. Mix all these things together, place on a baking dish, doesn't matter what kind. Form the mix into a loaf. Cover with ketchup, BBQ sauce, whatever you want. Bake at 375 F for like an hour. If done properly, it's fantastic. Edited to add putting meatloaf in the smoker is absolutely everything in life. It's that singer who crashed his silver black phantom bike. You take a pound of ground meat, beef, sausage, or a mix and make it the size of 2 pounds of meat by adding a few cups of breadcrumbs and an egg to hold it together, and season it and chop some vegetables into it, and then bake it in a loaf pan. And what you get is a delicious load of meat that is shaped like bread, and then you slice a slice of it. Think meatballs in loaf form. A giant meatball. Serve sliced and topped with ketchup or a ketchup-based BBQ sauce. Done right, it's delicious and a great comfort food. Awesome leftovers for a sandwich. Done wrong, it's wrong. Great served with mashed potsties. I use salsa on top of my meat loaf. Ground hamburger, egg, breadcrumbs, grated carrot, 1 pkg Lipton's onion soup mix, ketchup, mustard, all mixed together. Salsa on top, picante medium salsa, it's delicious, and my husband is a happy man because he also gets meatloaf sandwiches. Yup, that's exactly it. It's a loaf of meat. Usually ground minced beef seasoned with things like oregano, cumin, and garlic, toss in an egg and a little flour or breadcrumbs as a binder, and baked in a loaf pan. When the top is browned, it's usually topped with some kind of tomato-based sauce. Some people use ketchup, but I like to make my own and baked the rest of the way through. When I was growing up and had to eat food out of the trash to survive, I ate, and appreciated, a wide variety of meatloaf recipes. Meatloaf is composed of meat that is kept tender by not overworking it, vegetables, bread, and eggs to act as a binder. A sauce is usually added to keep the outside from getting rock hard in case of overcooking. The meat is either beef, pork, and some light meat like veal, chicken or turkey, or if you can, beef, streaky bacon, and a light meat. All meats ground minced. The bread is either dried breadcrumbs or stale bread soaked in milk to keep the meat proteins tender. For the vegetables, it tends to be divided by heritage: English, Irish, peas, onions, garlic, Cajun, Puerto Rican, red or green peppers, onion, celery, Italian, celery, onion, carrot sauce, ketchup or brown gravy. It's basically a giant meatball. Instead of a loaf of bread, you get a loaf of meat. Meatloaf. Imagine ground beef mixed with other ingredients molded into the shape of a loaf of bread, baked, covered in sauce, and cut up into slices like sliced bread. Think of it as one giant meatball in loaf shape. Onion, egg, bread crumbs. For a while we would put some spinach in it. Cook it in a Pyrex loaf pan, cooks in its juices real well. Like a meatball, but it slices like bread loaf. I love it. I make it with no ketchup, but add it. It's amazing. Side of mashed potatoes and corn on the cob with pepper and butter. There are tons of variations, more Italian, BBQ, no guys that smoke them, etc. It's exactly as it sounds. Ground meat, typically beef, mixed with egg and breadcrumbs, formed into a loaf. Most of meatloaf recipes are derived from meatball recipes. It's ground meat, seasoned, usually with some sort of binder like eggs and breadcrumb added, baked in the shape of a loaf of bread, usually made with ground beef or a mix of beef and pork. It's like a giant bread-sized meatball. Goes nice with gravy or ketchup, served over mashed potatoes.